Welcome to the People Teaching People podcast. Joining me on the podcast are Mercedes and Anastasia Korngut. I connected with Mercedes and Anastasia when they reached out to me by email, and am I ever glad they did. These two Calgary teenagers are making an incredible difference in the world, and I cannot wait to learn more about them. 17-year-old Mercedes and 14-year-old Anastasia are sisters and co-founders of the company Small Bits of Happiness. Their mission is to help individuals of all ages find more happiness in daily life, as well as build habits and connections. As two teens, Mercedes and Anastasia understand firsthand the difficulties of teenagehood, including not only the hormonal changes that tweens and teens undergo, but the added stressors of war, post-pandemic life, and beyond. Small Bits of Happiness has reached over 4 million teens and adults. Mercedes and Anastasia have been featured on national news and media, spoken at schools and conventions across North America, and host the podcast Hack Your Happiness. They have also designed a series of happiness wellness products for tweens, teens, adults, and schools. Thank you both so much for joining me today, Mercedes and Anastasia.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, we're so excited to be here.
Well, I feel like I have a lot to learn about you both, and where I wanted to start our conversation today is around the idea of teenagers and it being a bit of a challenging time. So, having been a teenager myself way back in the day, and now as a mom of 3 teenage boys, I can relate to there being some ups and downs, in life in general, but the teenage years can be particularly challenging. And you two seem to have turned those challenges into something really positive. So what inspired you to create Small Bits of Happiness, and where did this idea even come from?
Yeah, so Anastasia and I started Small Bits of Happiness during the pandemic. I was 13, she was 11, so we were really on the brink of teenagehood at that point. I guess we were struggling to feel happy, not only because of teenage hormones and changing responsibilities and friendship issues, but also there was a big global pandemic on top of that and stressors about climate change and war, and all of that still kind of remains today. So what we started to do as a family was focus on the small and the good things in every day, because we really wanted to feel happier. So we started to focus on, hey, what can I control? That was maybe going for a walk, or really enjoying eating a nice treat, or watching a comedy together. And those small things that we could do every single day to feel happier truly helped Anastasia and I feel so much happier. And then when we looked around, we realized we're not the only people, the only teenagers, the only preteens struggling to feel happy. How can we help our peers and our friends feel happier too? And so we decided, why don't we share the power of the small bits of happiness with our community? So we started back in 2021 on social media, because we were together thinking and brainstorming, where can we reach the most amount of teens? And to us, that was through social media. And so we started posting on TikTok and YouTube and on Instagram quotes and fun facts and funny videos. And from there, we've grown it into more ways to reach kids, reach teens, reach adults, through schools, teachers' conventions, through products, through a podcast as well, all just different ways to find more happiness in every day.
So was there a specific moment where you took this, a conversation or moment in time where you took this sort of amazing positive approach that you're taking with your family, and you're like, let's take it to that next place? Do you remember a specific moment, or did it just kind of happen over time?
I think, there was probably a bit of a conversation where we were talking about how it was not only us who was having a hard time feeling happier, but we were sitting in our dad's office and we were just brainstorming different things that we could do about it, and not only help us feel happier, but also help our friends, our peers, and everyone who is struggling feeling a bit happier find that through the ways that we found it in looking at those small good things in every day.
And our dad had this really awesome
it was
sticker
a blackboard.
Chalkboard, and we would write out different ideas. Every single day we had different meetings with action items, and we would write out how we were going to start something, and we didn't really even know what it would be, but I think it was just that idea of starting something.
I think we also just kind of looked at like small things we could start doing. I know Mercedes started building the website because she's like the tech genius. And then I started kind of working on building out like social media things that we could post and looking kind of like at quotes and funny videos that we could repost and kind of starting to build a social media presence.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So it's been quite a journey and sort of leveraging your skills and talents and just kind of thinking about what could be possible. So I love your story. And with your work, you've really been engaging people of all ages, which is fantastic. And are there any specific areas of challenge that people are having as you're talking to, chatting with, working with, kind of putting things out there in the world?
I think something that we've noticed and learned is the importance of connection and happiness. Like we spoke to on our podcast, Sonia Lubomirski, and she's a professor and a psychologist, and she said one of the top ways to feeling happier is connection. But I think where there's a big gap from what we've noticed and what we're trying to kind of help with through Small Bits of Happiness is connection between parents and their kids and their teenagers. And so I think that that's a big kind of pain point is like, parents might not really know sometimes how to connect with their teens, and teens sometimes can be a bit hard to connect with because, now we have our phones and our screens and friends and everything. And so it can be kind of difficult. And so we try to provide really tangible, easy ways to build that connectivity because it can really help feel happier when we feel connected with one another.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love the word connection. And I think you're so right. It does play such a big role in how we're feeling day to day. Speaking of day to day, it's easy to get caught up in like the busyness of it all, right? There's always all these things that we're doing. It could be school and work or extracurricular or just lots of responsibilities and things going on. One thing that I really appreciate about your approach and perspective is the idea it doesn't have to be this huge thing that we do. It can be something small. So, what are some simple ways that you have already suggested, or sort of the ones that come up most often when you're talking about ways to kind of inject these small bits of happiness?
I find that for me, what I love doing is firstly on the weekends, I love sleeping in a bit. I find that sleep is so great because you're able to function a lot better and you're able to process what happens during the day a lot better as well. I also know that listening to upbeat music is really, really great. I know sometimes if we're feeling a little bit down, it can be easy to say, hey, I just want something comforting. I want to listen to something a bit slower. But that can kind of continue to make us feel a bit sad. So I like to put on some upbeat music, which will also help us. And then again, going back to connection, just talking with someone about how you're feeling, as well as spending time with your friends and your family and doing small, happy things together.
Mm-hmm. Mercedes, what about you? Do you like to sleep in too?
I'm really an early riser. Like, I love to wake up early. It makes me so happy to wake up early. I like to listen to an audiobook while I get ready, or on the weekends, a nice music playlist. And just like having the routine and feeling like I have a lot of time in my day is where I feel happy. And then also for me, sunlight plays a big role. So like, even if it's too cold to go outside, like opening the windows, or like, opening the door in my room, letting that sunlight in when it's decently warm outside, or sometimes I need to bundle up a little more, going for a walk with my mom, with my dog, and like connecting that way, I think is also so important for happiness.
Yeah, and I have noticed in what you've been sharing online and in looking at your website, your messaging really is around, there's not like this set recipe of 10 things that each of us need to do to kind of inject these little bits of happiness. It's really about doing it in a way that aligns with who we each are. So
Totally.
hopefully this 9:30 a.m. podcast recording time was like not too early, but not too late for both of you. Now, another piece is just that you both talk about is injecting these little bits of happiness in everyday moments. So you've sort of alluded to that, right? With just how we wake up in the morning and letting the sunlight in and getting up at a time that feels great, or putting on that upbeat music. So why do you think in the world that we're in today, having this approach is really so important?
Yeah, I think that focusing on a lot of different things. I mean, teens and individuals of all ages, we have so many different things going on, like you mentioned earlier. And I think that oftentimes it can be really easy to get overwhelmed by it because there's constantly stuff going on. There's school, there's tests. I know we just finished our exams and we're in exam break right now. So it can be so easy to get consumed by stress and maybe being scared that what other people are thinking of us. But instead, when we focus on what we can control instead of what we can't, we find that there's so much that is under our power. And one of those things is our happiness. And so if we're able to concentrate on those small good things, like I know we mentioned before, I just think that those things are so powerful because although they seem small, they're constant and consistent because our birthday only comes once a year. Christmas only comes once a year. Maybe a family vacation comes once or twice a year. I mean, they're great things to look forward to, but we can feel sad afterwards because they're not consistent and constant.
If you wait to be happy just for your birthday and Christmas, there's a lot of days in between those that you're just going to be waiting for those special moments. So you've mentioned all the things that you have going on, and exams are super stressful and can take a lot of time to prepare for. All the other pieces that go along with school, and then extracurricular. And then on top of that, you have a business. What helps you to manage all those different responsibilities and hats that you wear?
So for me, I'm currently in 11th grade. So I feel like it's definitely, the stakes are higher. There's more work at school. And obviously we have a lot of work through Small Bits of Happiness. But I like to think of Small Bits of Happiness as like, it's our business. Yes, but I don't do sports. So we're not in the school production. We don't really have any extracurriculars because we are very invested and so passionate about Small Bits of Happiness that is kind of like, when my friends finish school, they go to soccer practice or basketball practice, and I go home and I work on my business. It's just kind of a different approach. And then at the same time, I think also being very organized is essential. Like, I have an itinerary, an agenda where I write out what I'm going to do every single day of the week so that I'm not overloading on one given day. And, it's give and take. Like now during the exam break, we'll do less schoolwork, and then maybe when school is in full swing and there's tests to be preparing for, that means put some work off until the weekend or until I'm done my homework. It really just depends. At the same time, I think waking up early and trying to, for me, crank out some work in the morning is essential because I feel like that just gives me a good start to the day, feeling like I've already been productive and gotten some work done and made a dent in that to-do list is important as well. So I think it's all about finding what works for you. And also I think eliminating distractions is essential because I think that we can all spend, teens and also adults, hours scrolling, even like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it might be. And so I think like if you can eliminate that or at least reduce that, you're going to have a lot more time in your day. So for me, I use my phone as a sort of a motivator and reward. I'm like, once I finish doing X, well, now I can go on my phone a little bit or watch some Netflix, whatever it might be, because that's a really good motivator and using that to your advantage rather than as a distraction.
Totally. I love that. I also try to use that as it's like, don't use your phone right now, or like I'll put it behind my laptop. So like when you lift the screen, you can't even see it. So it's like out of sight, out of mind. And I think that's also really great, as well as like having some music in so that you're able to like fully focus on the work that you're working on while at the same time you kind of have something that's like fun and motivating you. I also think that, like Mercedes said, I know on school days, I wake up at 6 on school days, so that I'm able to get ready and then I still have some time to do some work so that when I get home from school, it's not like I have everything to do plus studying and a workout. Like, you've done some work already, so you already feel like you've been productive.
You both have some excellent strategies, some good reminders, and you're so right. There's so many distractions out there, and the phone is a bad one for all of us. Now, starting a business, there's a huge learning curve that goes along with that. And a lot of things come up. There can be things that come up that you don't even expect. So as young entrepreneurs, what maybe has surprised you the most about getting into the business world?
I think for me, it would have to be kind of how you have to be able to pivot. Like you can't put yourself in a box or into a hole and be like, I am running this type of business and this is how I'm going to run it and this is my goal. Like when we first started Moments of Happiness, our vision was so different than what it turns out to be. And I think that that's something like you constantly have to be willing to learn and pivot and innovate and change. And that's really the only way to constantly grow, because otherwise, if you have one vision and you're just like going to ride it out, it's just not sustainable, because you don't know everything that there is to know when you're starting, and as you're progressing and, you know, trends change and everything changes and the people you're working with change and your clients might change. And so you just have to be able to really just be willing to change all the time, and even just in slight ways, and like still have your overarching, you know, mission and vision, but the small details really be willing to pivot on.
Totally. I would have to fully agree with Mercedes on that one. I mean, a business is a constantly changing game, and you're constantly adapting and pivoting and saying, hey, is this something that we're still interested in doing? It's all about solving problems. It's all about seeing what's ahead of you and figuring out the best way to approach it.
And have you had some guidance in this journey, some mentors or people that you've been able to go to pick their brains and get some direction, ask some questions?
Absolutely. I mean, our family is so supportive. Our parents are so supportive. We watch so many business movies and TV shows about, you know, like Apple or Spotify or Facebook, anything like that. I have read a number of business books and listened to them in the mornings, and podcasts I think are amazing. I'm a huge podcast fan, as well as, you know, I think even Calgary is such an incredible, you know, entrepreneurial city. There's amazing programs out there, courses that you can take that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of. Like I did in the spring, the Movement 51 Founder Lab, and it was so insightful and educational and supportive, and I learned a ton, and I'm so thankful for that experience because I learned so much and met amazing people. And so I think there's just so many different routes that anyone can take within Calgary as well as online to learn about business.
What about you, Anastasia? What have been some of your big learning tools or moments that you've had?
Totally. I mean, first off, our family has been so supportive and they've been so encouraging and they help us out. I know it's not easy to get to all the places. Oftentimes it's a lot of driving. So our mom is absolutely amazing about that. As well as, you know, just looking for inspiration and feeling inspired consistently by like looking towards people who have achieved so much through reading books and those TV shows, as well as just speaking to other people in Calgary who have created businesses. We've gone to some conventions and the people there have so many insights, and it's so amazing to learn from them and hear them talk.
Yeah, it really takes a village, doesn't it?
Totally,
Yeah.
100%.
And I can resonate with your mom and the taxi cab driving stage of life, but it's awesome. Moms love to do that stuff. It's exciting to have our kids find their things that they love and drive them all over to help them make that happen. Speaking of parents, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but parents and teens, sometimes that relationship can be a little bit tricky, and finding those ways to connect can be tough. So what would you say would be, for parents who are listening, some important things that they could do to help build those stronger connections and those more supportive relationships with their teens?
Totally. So Mercedes and we realized that there was such a gap, and a lot of teens and moms wanted to have a relationship with each other, but it can be so hard to form that. So we created a game with 100 unique activities to do every day to find more happiness and create connections. And so it's just 100 activities that a teen and a parent can do together. These are great ways to find out, does this make us happy? And you're experiencing it together, and you're creating these memories and these bonds. And together, you're realizing, okay, maybe this doesn't make me happy, but we did it together and that was fun. Or maybe this really did make me happy and now we can do this together more often.
And then another thing is, I think that's really important for parents to do to connect with their teens is, you know, I think sometimes there's like this approach that's like not interrogative, but it's very like upfront, like, you know, let's sit and talk about your day and like, how was your day? What can we do about it? Why are you feeling this way? And I think sometimes that can be very kind of intimidating to teens. Like you're suddenly sitting at a table or in the car, at the dinner table, whatever it might be, just talking to your parent about your day. And that's very like a little bit scary maybe, or stressful if you're not used to that, and hard to open up and be honest. And so I think really trying to foster those like authentic and genuine conversations by doing something together.
Yes.
And so some of our favorite pieces of advice include like, go and ask your teen, hey, what do you want to do together? Like, we're going to do something together. You can pick what it is. If you want, maybe we're going to go and do like an art class together if that's what you're interested in. We can go for a little walk around the block with our pet. Maybe we're going to go play your favorite sport outside. We can go to a hockey game or some sort of sports game depending on the interest.
Totally.
And there, foster a conversation based on what's happening lately, what's been new, what are you interested in, rather than like this kind of approach where you're just sitting across the table
and
talking.
The sitting across the table approach is very interrogative. It seems like you're trying to get information. It's like you did something wrong and I need to figure that out. And so then it makes the teen kind of feel like defensive, like you have to protect something. And so kind of having that approach of, I'm not interrogating you, we're just going to do something together and be walking side by side. It's almost that action of having an indirect conversation when you're both trying to talk about something is the best way to genuinely hear what your teen has to say and learn about your teen's experiences and have that great connection and conversation.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're talking about shared experiences, being curious, and listening.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing that's super important is I think sometimes parents try to relate to the teen to be like, oh, when that happened to me, when I was in high school, kind of like that back in my old days. And while that's really helpful to like have something to relate to, I think sometimes it's so important to just hear your teen out fully and understand that situations have changed so much with social media, with having almost 3 years of our lives consumed by a pandemic. Like, I think a lot of teens are experiencing things that can be hard to relate to for adults. And so sometimes just realizing like, that's so tough. And why don't you tell me more about this instead of turning the conversation onto themselves? Like, I think sometimes that can be related.
As well as not just saying, this is the solution I found when I was your age, because again, the different times, because maybe saying, okay, let's figure out a solution together that you think is the best for the situation you're in right now. And maybe that means saying, hey, maybe we could consider doing this, as I found that's worked for me in the past. But, what do you think about that?
These are all great reminders, I think, for all of the parents listening, and for me too. This is good because I'm very much, as I said, a mom of teens. I've got 3 of them, so I'm in the thick of it. And yeah, absolutely, things have changed from the time I was a teenager, so I can appreciate that things are different. So thank you for really speaking so openly about that experience and some great suggestions for us to remember as parents when we're trying to connect and communicate with our teenagers. Now, obviously, as parents, we want what's best for our kids. And, we want them to be confident, we want them to be well-rounded, and we want them to care about other people and the world around them. And it can be hard as a parent when you watch your kids kind of go through those tough times and those struggles. And how do you, from a teen perspective, think that parents can best support their teenagers with balancing like the mental and emotional wellness piece with also kind of going out into the world and encouraging them to kind of put some good out there in the world and make a difference?
I think it's so different for every family and for every situation. Like, your teen best. And so like really knowing like, how much do I trust them? Like past experiences with your teenager, like what have they done in the past versus like maybe really helping them. I think the best way that you can help your teen, from my perspective, obviously it's different for everyone and for every situation, but is really being there for them and like coming from a non-judgmental standpoint to like listen to their experiences, because sometimes they're acting a certain way because of something that's going on, even if they're not as like upfront about it. So like really trying to get your teen to open up by like some of the tips that we just shared. Be stressed. What do they really need and want from you? Because I think a lot of times, like from what I've experienced, is like I know what I would want my parent to do, but it's hard to ask them. And so I think sometimes like when you can get your teen to open up about their situation and then try to figure out, or even ask them directly, like, what can I really do to support you? And obviously you might not always be able to bend to all their needs or requests, but like trying your best to meet them halfway or come to a compromise, and also just do things together to really show them that like you're not in it alone. Because I think a lot of teens feel so lonely in what they're going through, and growing up and navigating high school and applying to college or figuring out what they want to do after they graduate. And so like really like showing them like you're not alone. I'm here for you, even if you're busy and they're busy, like you're still together.
Totally. As well as like fostering that kind of safe space of not being judgmental. And I know a lot of teens will be like, oh, I just don't want my parents to know because I feel like they're going to judge me and then they're going to give me a big lecture about why I shouldn't be doing this. When in reality, like I just want them to listen to me. And I think, like, again, just fostering that non-judgmental environment where your teen can feel like they can open up to you and that you're just going to be looking for that best way to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. And I think, my conversation with you, but just these reminders in general, I think, we can learn something from everybody. And if we kind of go in with that learner curious mindset versus like, I have all the answers, right? It doesn't matter that I'm older than you, that parents are older than their teens. We can still learn things from our teens. And I think if we have that openness to that, it can really help with that connection piece and that relationship piece. So I so appreciate all that you're sharing with me and people listening today. And speaking of listening and conversation, you mentioned that you both have a podcast, which I love, and it is called Hack Your Happiness. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm so curious, like in this business journey, what kind of sparked the interest in having a podcast? And what have been maybe some of your favorite lessons or stories that have come from that?
So we started Hack Your Happiness because Anastasia and I know firsthand how hard it can be sometimes. Well, there's a number of reasons.
Yes.
But one of the first reasons that we came across was it can be really difficult to take advice from your parents or your coaches or your mentors as a teen. Like, it makes sense where they're coming from. Like, obviously their experience, but sometimes there's a big pushback to that. And I think that a lot of teens, from my understanding and my perspective, is like, it's so interesting to hear what your idols have to say and what your idols would give as advice rather than maybe your coach or a teacher. Like, what would they advise you to do based on their experiences? And also I think, so that's one part, is like advice for teens from these top individuals giving advice to teens on how they can become more like them. Because I think sometimes we're like, how could I become an Oscar winner? How could I become a top chef? How could I become a best-selling author? Well, let's ask them and find out their advice so that you can feel less lonely, as well as figure out like their journey with happiness. How was their experience like as a teen? Like, really, Anastasia and I just want to foster conversations from a teen perspective for parents and teens alike to listen to and get advice from these top individuals.
Totally. And ask the questions that a teen on the other end may be wondering.
And their parents.
Exactly.
Now, you have had some pretty amazing guests. So if people were wanting to check out your podcast, which they should, an episode in particular that I really liked was one with Anna Olson. So who might be some of the people that people might find you having conversations with on your podcast?
Some of our latest have been, we like to like mix it up.
Totally.
So we've had like Penny Alexiak, the most decorated Canadian Olympic athlete. We had Kristen and Taryn. They went as beach volleyball for Team USA to Paris in 2024 Summer Olympics. We've had Marissa Meyer, the New York Times bestselling author.
We also have had Catherine Martin. She is Baz Luhrmann's wife, and she did all the amazing costume designs from The Great Gatsby, from the Elvis movie. I mean, she is absolutely amazing. Yeah.
We have Meg Cabot.
Yes.
She wrote The Princess Diaries, the movie with Anne Hathaway in it, which that was a really exciting conversation. Anna Olson, which was really exciting. All tons of people.
Yeah, we've had NASCAR drivers as well on there.
Yeah, lots of cool people.
So yes, for those listening, when I say you need to check out these girls and their podcasts, you really do. You've done an amazing job, and there's some fantastic people that you've spoken to and just great conversations and great questions that you've asked. I really admire your curiosity and the way that you bring out some really interesting stories and advice from the individuals that you speak with. Along with this podcast, you've mentioned the cards that you have with ideas for activities and ways that parents and teens can connect with one another, but you've also created so many tools and resources for others to embrace happiness. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what else people can find when they come to your website.
Yeah, for sure. So on our website, we have Shop Bits, which is where you can buy these products to help connect. So we have the game, like I mentioned before, Mission Small Bits of Happiness, which has 100 unique activities to do every day to find more happiness and build connection. So that's for anyone aged 12 and up. And then we also have another game due to talking to a lot of moms and with a lot of popular requests for younger kids. So we have a simplified version of the game with some cute characters on it. And those are for kids aged 6 to 12. So it's just an easier version of the game, as well as a calendar with 365 days of fun facts, mood boosts, just overall small ways to feel a little bit happier every day. And the best part is there's no day of the week, which means you can use it year after year. As well as we also have a bunch of clothes, which are all designed just to remind you to look for those small good things every day.
Yeah, and then we've also got a jewelry collection, tons of different products under Shop Bits, all to inspire the happiness in daily life that we've designed. We design all the clothing and the jewelry and candles, everything you see on there. Then we've also got a blog where we post like fun things to do, advice for teens, science behind happiness. So that's on our website as well. Yes. Our podcast is on there.
We also have a mood boost section. So if you're just looking for fun things like quotes, funny videos, we have a lot of those on there as well.
Free daily happiness content.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah.
Just a few things. Hey, just one or two. That's amazing. Yes. So many awesome things to check out there. Okay. Mercedes and Anastasia, you've both done so many things. You've got so many things on the go. And I know you've said, where you started is not kind of where you thought you would be and how things would go. What's next? What are you thinking in terms of everything you're doing with Small Bits of Happiness, and what's kind of next for both of you with that?
We are so excited for 2025 because we've been just thinking of more ways to reach more people, more teens, more tweens, more adults with happiness and help spread those small bits of happiness. So we're launching new products, just working on that side of things, as well as our podcast. And then we're also going to be just looking for more ways to work with other organizations to spread happiness in more unique ways. We have a few things kind of under the works that we can't really talk about yet. Yeah.
So stay tuned, follow along, and then you can catch on to what all the things that are kind of happening under the radar. That's exciting.
Yes.
Okay. So you're both students and in school, and I always ask my guests this question because I think we all have one. So who might be your favorite teacher? And it doesn't need to be like a school teacher. It can be just somebody in your life who's taught you something that's really stuck with you. And I'm curious why that person means so much to you.
I really, really look up to my mom. My mom is absolutely amazing. And I think she's taught the both of us that, good things come to patience and making sure that if you continue working hard, good things will come to you. As well, she's just been such a support. And I don't think that neither of us could come this far without her. And she's definitely been such an amazing role model for a happy person. She's so happy, and she really, really helped us find small bits of happiness because she definitely tried to motivate us to look for those small good things when we were feeling a bit sadder. So I would definitely have to say my mom. Mercedes?
Yeah, you stole it from me. I was going to say my mom too, because especially as I've gotten older, I feel like I'm 17 now, and my mom has just always been there so much for me, like through all the ups and the downs of me being a child and a tween and a teen. And I think what I've really noticed about my mom is she's really taught me the importance of being there for other people. And I think she really instilled that into both of us since we were really young, is give everything that you can do for others, help them, support them, and obviously take care of yourself too. But she just really demonstrates the very importance of caring and loving for others.
Wow, that's very nice and lovely. And I know, I'm sure your mom knows how much you appreciate her. And I think that's just such a beautiful way to recognize and celebrate her. She's clearly had a huge impact on both of you, which is fantastic.
Absolutely.
Now, when you look back at your journeys so far, and I mean, truly, you both are just getting started, but what would be something that you're the most proud of?
I don't know. I feel like I'm so proud of everything we have achieved. We've worked so hard for so many years, and now everything we have done is so successful and prominent. For so long, we just kind of worked quietly, and now things are starting to pick up a lot more. And I think it's amazing to look back and see that all the work we've created from then is so important, and it's making such a huge difference. We celebrate everything at Small Bits of Happiness. We know how important it is to celebrate those small milestones instead of just the huge ones. So I think definitely I'm proud of everything that's happened. It's hard to pick just one.
For me, I'd say I'm proud of everything, obviously, but there was a few moments that really stand out. So I'm like, wow, I never could have imagined being here a year or 6 months ago. And for me, one of those moments was in September. I signed with the Emboldened Media Group for my book agent. And I was so proud of myself for that because I've always loved writing. Ever since I was little, I would write stories and enter writing competitions at school and stuff like that. And so for me, being signed with this media group for, a book that will be down the road coming up was just such a wow moment for me. I was like, wow, someone else believes in me and can sign on with me. And I thought that was so, so cool. And I was so proud of myself.
Oh, that's amazing. So it's great, when you see you put that positive energy out into the world and things all start to click and start to happen, and that good energy continues to come back. So that is fantastic. You've provided us with a lot of inspiration and ideas throughout the conversation, but I always like to weave in threads of education and teaching and learning, and that's a lot about what both of you do. And you're both very curious people who seem to be learning and growing every single day, both in school, of course, but also in your business aspirations. So I'm wondering if you have any final thoughts or words of wisdom for people listening to really inspire and encourage them in their own teaching and learning journeys.
Yeah, for sure. I think that just knowing that every day will be different. I know that sometimes we're just hoping that all of a sudden we can just become so much happier. And it will be. You will be able to feel happier if you start looking for those small good things. But you will have bad days sometimes, and that's totally okay. And also just to be curious and try new things. Just saying, okay, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to see, hopefully I like it. But, if I don't, that's okay. I'm just going to try it. That's all that matters.
Yeah. And I think for me, we were speaking with a NASCAR driver and a motivational speaker, Julia Landauer, on our podcast. And I always love to ask what someone's favorite quote is. And she mentioned that hers is, don't be the one to tell yourself no. And for me, that has stuck so close to home because I think so many times, and she explained this too, is so many people will tell you, no, you can't do that, or that's not going to work out, or sorry, I can't help you with that. I don't know if that's possible. So many people will tell you that, but oftentimes we also tell ourselves that, and we're like, no, I can't do that. I don't have time to do that. I'm not good enough to do that. And so there's so many exterior forces that will try to stop us or try to drag us down. Obviously, there's also so many supportive ones as well, but there's a lot of good and bad and trying to overcome hurdles throughout any place in life. I think that we have to believe in ourselves and don't be the one to tell yourself no. Just try your best. Go for it. If you have a goal or an inclination, explore it and don't shut yourself down without any reason to.
Great advice and words of wisdom from both of you. And Mercedes and Anastasia, I just want to thank you both so much for joining me today. This has been fantastic. If our listeners want to learn more about you, all the things you're up to, all the things coming up that can't be discussed yet, where are the best places to find you?
So we have our website, like we mentioned before, which is just smallbitsofhappiness.com.
That would be the best place.
As well as we have our social media, which is all Small Bits of Happiness.
Perfect. Well, thank you both again so much for joining me. It was amazing to connect with you and to learn from you.
Thank you. This was such a wonderful podcast,
yes,
and we really appreciate you hosting us and sharing our story a little bit today as well.